cervical convex than in central incisors. The distal contact area is more cervical than the mesial here, more cervical than the mesial. Root depressions are seen on both the mesial and distal surfaces. And the last profile is incisal profile. And you can see that this incisal ridge is tilted distally and lingually, and cingulum is shifted to the, you can see cingulum is shifted to the distal, and this allows the tooth to follow the dental arch curvature. So the incisal edge is not at right angle to a line bisected, this tooth labiolingually. Here, do you hear me?
Yes, we can, doctor.
Yes. Would you like a break?
As you wish. But if we can finish earlier without a break, it's better.
How, if you would like, you can take break. No, let's continue. I don't
Yeah,
like. I
yeah,
don't need.
without breaks,
What?
without a break. We can continue and finish
Yes,
earlier.
yes. Continue. Yes, there are permanent maxillary canine here. Well, let's describe permanent. Do you see? I put into this all parameters, all main features of this tooth, of all teeth. Do you understand? And I think that it you should study from this. Yes, central features. These are permanent canines, and central features are that they are longest tooth in the dental arch, convex on all surfaces, highly developed middle lobe, and they are pentagonal or trapezoidal, triangular, and function is cutting and tearing of food. And here you can see these are maxillary canines, and these are mandibular canines, two maxillary and two mandibular canines. They have very long root for good anchoring in the bone. This, you know, that there is the canine eminence which overlaps this canine root. Yes, and let's begin description. This has also five surfaces or five aspects. And let's begin from why from distal, mesial, labial. Let's begin from labial aspect. And this, you can see these are mesial side, this is distal side, and the mesial is shorter than distal. Distal is longer, and they are concave to the touch. They have eminence in the middle of the tooth, which is cusp teeth, and crown has convexity in all direction, and cervical ridge. You can see that cervical ridge is less convex, and the root is long, conical, with pointed apex. Yes. Then this is not this. That is a lingual aspect, and you can see the cingulum, cervical cingulum, and you can see the marginal ridges, mesial and distal marginal ridges. You can see the lingual ridge, mesio-incisal and the disto-incisal ridges, mesio-incisal and disto-incisal ridges. And you can see two lingual fossa here and here, and they have root narrow lingually, then labially. This and they have and labial, no, distal aspect. Distal slope is longer. You can see distal slope is longer than mesial. and surface is convex mesiodistally and incisor cervically. They have labial ridge. Here you can see labial ridge and the cervical ridge, and it has cusp. Depression, there are two developmental grooves developmental growth. There is missile aspect and one third. Root is tapers and or developmental grooves on its surface. Then this is you can see the missile cusp slope tip. You can see the labial surface is convex. And this cusp tip directed toward labial surface and mesial surface. Yes. Then this is mandibular canine, and let's describe. This is labial aspect of mandibular canine. Differs from maxillar canine by crown is narrower than mesiodistally. Crown is longer by 1 millimeter, nearly straight. This outline then contact more cervical than distally, more it's more cervically than mesially, and the root is convex and shorter by 1-2 millimeter, and the apex is more sharply pointed. Then this is lingual aspect. The crown is narrower, flatter, and you can see this elevation of lower canine, which are node and cingulum at the cervical one third. The lingual anatomy, this is less developed. There are no lingual ridges, are not distinct on the both sides. And you can see cusp tip, distinct only at cusp tip here. It is distinct at cusp tip, and one shallow fossa. You can see. Now, this is missile aspect. And the crown is missile longer than the upper one, but narrower labiolingually, yes. Cusp ridge more slender and lingually inclined, and developmental depression, mesial developmental depression here, or root is more pronounced. And the root may be bifurcated. And you can see here mesial aspect, this developmental depression on the root is more deeper and well developed, and the distal contact area more cervically, and this distal area is more pronounced. Cervical line is less carved. Yes. And here you can see this incisal aspect. You can see this mesial aspect is less carved. Cusp tip is located mesiolingually. Distal aspect, you can see this distal cusp slope, and the cingulum shifted distally. Cingulum is shifted distally from this, and this is convex on the distal labial aspect. Then these are maxillary first premolars. This is their function, assist in shearing and cutting, support the corners of the mouth, has two cusps, they are called bicusps, buccal and the lingual. Crown is angular shape and crown is shorter than canine. Most have two roots and two canals. And let discuss. This is buccal outline. Mhm. Missile outline is nearly concave. You can see nearly concave. Distal outline is straight. Missile cusp is nearly straight. Missile straight, while the distal cusp slope distal slightly. And missile, no, yes. Mm, and this is cervical line, which is less convex. Root cervical line is convex root-wise. Then crown. This has elevations. Buccal surface is convex with the maximum convexity at the 1/3. Middle lobe is prominent buccally, forming the buccal ridge, and there are shallow depressions at mesial and distal sides of the buccal ridge. There is a lingual side, and you can see these mesial and distal outlines are convex. The cervical line is less convex. The distal slope of the lingual cusp is longer. Distal slope of lingual cusp is longer. It has two cusps, a lingual and a buccal cusp. And a lingual surface is convex with the maximum at 1/3 of needle 1/3. And you can see this convexity in the middle of the tooth. The missile aspect, you can see that this is trapezoid, yes, and these small, they have uneven sides in occlusive. And let's see, this curvature of cervical line is less compared to missile surface. Developmental grooves are less evident. And in occlusive aspect, you can see these two cusps. This is mesial, this is distal. It is hexagonal in shape, and it has two equal buccal sides here, mesio-buccally and disto-buccally. And the mesial side is shorter than the distal side. The distal side is, and the thickness is greater than width. The crown is wider buccally. Crown is wider buccally than lingually. And here you can see the elevations. There are this buccal elevation, and also you can see the depressions. This is triangular depression, and triangular fossa and marginal development groove here, marginal development groove here. And you can see the triangular ridges, you can see the mesial and distal marginal ridges here. And you can see these bicuspid tooth. They have two cusps. This is buccal side and the lingual side. This is buccal cusp ridge. This is mesial cusp ridge of buccal cusp. And this is distal cusp ridge of buccal cusp. These sides, this is distal, mesiobuccal, distobuccal, distolingual, mesiolingual sides, and you can see the central groove and mesial margin grooves here, central groove, and mesial margin groove here, and you can see the lingual cusp, mhm, of buccal cusp. Yes. Then here you can see all this structure. It is a buccal cusp, it is a lingual cusp, this is central groove, and also this is distal marginal ridge, this is marginal ridge, and you can see this secondary groove, you can see this triangular groove, and you can see this secondary groove. This is mesiolingual triangular groove here, mesiolingual triangular groove. This is distal pit, this is mesial pit, and this is distal lingual triangular groove. This is the comparison of maxillary first molar and the maxillary second premolar. And what is the difference between them? The big cusp is long and pointed. And do you see?
Yes, yes, we can see,
Yes.
doctor.
The cusp is longer. This is distal side, mesial side. The cusp is longer in the first premolar, is short in a second premolar. The longer M slope, then distal slope, and a shorter mesial slope, then a distal slope, and they are this mesiodistally it is shorter than second premolar is shorter than first premolar, and cervical line curved rootwise, and cervical line is less curved. Now, let's discuss maxillary second premolar. You see these five profiles of this. And here you can see, I could not find these pictures of these premolars and find these diagrams. And you can see this is a buccal surface, this is a lingual surface, and what features have they from buccal surface? There are mesial lobe, there is central lobe, there is distal lobe, this is cusp, and also you can see the distobuccal developmental groove and mesiobuccal developmental groove, and from outside they have such imbrication lines, and we discussed these imbrication lines with enamel. And what is here? Here are ridges. This is a lingual ridge of lingual cusp. This is the distal side. This is mesial side, and this is lingual cusp. Here you can see this. These are indicated contact areas. This is mesial developmental depression, this mesial surface, and for lingual and the buccal surfaces. This you can see that this buccal cusp is much larger than lingual cusp. And here you can see the mesial marginal ridge here. This is the occlusal aspect. You can see the central. This is lingual aspect. This is buccal aspect. This is lingual cusp. This is buccal cusp. And you can see the central groove. You can see the mesiobuccal triangular developmental groove. You can see here mesiolingual triangular groove. And this is distobuccal triangular developmental groove, and distal lingual triangular groove here. And you can see this distal pit and mesial pit, and this is the lingual triangular ridge in buccal ridge of the buccal cusp, and this is buccal triangular ridge on the lingual cusp. Then mandibular first premolar, and let's describe. This is mandibular first premolar. It is trapezoid, and the base lies on occlusally, and the short base lines cervically. Short side is cervically located, and you can see that mesial outline is slightly concave, then distal outline, and mesial slope is shorter than the distal slope. Mesial slope is shorter than distal slope. Yes. Then this is lingual aspect. It is lingual. There you can see the lingual cusp is 2/3 of the buccal cusp. Lingual, lingual cusp is and this is buccal cusp. The short lingual cusp may be called well-developed cingulum. It is more, it seems more than that cingulum as cingulum. The mesial and distal triangular fossa, can you see? And this is distal triangular fossa and mesial triangular fossa. And the lingual surface is spheroid, and cervical line is slightly convex. It is straight, more straight. And here, this is mesial aspect, and you can see that mesial convexity at cervical 1/3, and you can see this convexity, maximum convexity at middle third. This is cervical 1/3, middle third, and upper incisal third. And this convexity in distal side, in middle third, and in mesial side is cervical side. And also you can see the mesial lingual developmental groove here. And you can see the lingual inclination, and it is rhomboid in shape and has lingual inclination. Then you can see the lingual cusp and buccal cusp. Lingual cusp is smaller, buccal cusp is much more larger, and the lingual cusp comprises 2/3 of buccal cusps. And you can see also these marginal ridges, which is sloping lingually, and this is lingual cusp tip here, and contact area you can see is in line with the buccal cusp tip, and the root is straight and tapered and pointed apex, and has deep developmental groove in the middle. And now here, this is distal aspect. This is similar to mesial aspect, but differs in distal marginal ridge. Distal marginal ridge is straight and perpendicular to the long axis. Developmental groove, you can see 1 and 2 developmental grooves, and contact area is broader and more three cervically. And this is incisal aspect, occlusal aspect. Occlusal aspect, it is diamond form and round shaped, yes. And it has, the buccal cusp have a large triangular ridge, yes, buccal cusp. Mhm. The lingual cusp has small triangular ridge, and the buccal and triangular or lingual triangular ridges connect by transverse ridge here. And mesial and distal triangular fossa, you can see mesial and distal triangular fossa. And here now, this is the second premolar, which makes contact mesially with the distal surface of the first premolar, and distally it communicates with the mesial surface of the first mesially is communicates with the first premolar and distally with the first molar. And this is mandibular. Mandibular second. That's first. Yes. This is mandibular second premolar, and you can see their buccal aspect. It is trapezoid in shape. You can see the short side cervically. Short side is cervically, and the base is occlusally. And distal slope is shorter, and this mesial slope is longer. The distal contact area you can see here, distal contact area, and this is mesial contact area. And the root is conic and tapers, and it has two cusps, buccal cusps and mesial cusps. You can see here, this is a lingual aspect, and you can see two lingual cusps here. Two lingual cusps. They can be divided by this lingual developmental groove. Yes, and lingual cusp is shorter than the buccal cusp. When there is three cusps, the mesiolingual cusp is larger, mesiolingual cusp is larger than distolingual cusp. And you can see that this is cervical line, which is less convex. And there is cervical line is lightly convex, and the root is conic. Here you can see these elevations. This is buccal ridge, and the cervical ridge, and there are depressions. There are developmental grooves, mesial and distal developmental grooves. Root is cone shape, and it has rarely it has distal inclination. And this is mesial aspect. You can see these cusps. It is rhomboidal in shape, and you can see it has a lingual inclination. This is buccal aspect, and this is a lingual profile. Buccal cusp is larger than a lingual cusp. Lingual cusp, maybe one or two, they can be divided to these lingual cusps. They are well developed, the lingual, and you can see the mesial marginal ridge, which is straight and perpendicular to the central axis of the tooth. And this was mesial aspect. There is no mesiolingual developmental groove. Yes, root is longer and has blunt aspect, blunt apex. And what is this? Is distal aspect, and you can see the distal marginal ridge. You can see the buccal cusp. You can see two lingual cusps, and these or two or both pits of lingual cusps are seen. And there is distal lingual developmental depression between them. And here you can see, this is occlusal aspect. the two cusp type. There are two cusp, buccal cusp and the lingual cusp. It makes this central groove and accessional grooves. They make such H letter form. This is buccal, this is lingual. They may be transverse ridge, and the surface supplemental grooves and fossa. You can see the mesial and distal fossae, which are round. This is groove, developmental groove. And then is here. This is permanent maxillary first molar. These are the largest teeth, you know. There are three molars. The third molar is called the wisdom tooth. And what are interesting, there are four cusps, and maybe the fifth cusp, which is called cusp of Carabelli, but it is no real cusp because the real cusp they have cusps, they have underlying dentine, but this cusp of Carabelli has no dentine and it is concretion of enamel and it is not real cusp. And let's see the yes, you can see this is the buccal aspect. It is trapezoid in shape. It has four cusps. Yes. Mesiobuccal cusp is larger, and we see this in occlusal. This is mesiobuccal cusp. Yes. And this is mesiolingual cusp. This is mesiobuccal, which is larger. This is the cusp of Carabelli here, the fifth cusp. And mesiolingual is the largest. Then there is mesiobuccal, then distolingual cusp and the distobuccal cusp, and as we mentioned, this is cusp of Carabelli. And this is buccal aspect of this tooth. But we have a buccal groove. Yes, we have a prominent buccal groove that continues over from the occlusal surface. Then proximal contact areas in middle third. The roots are visible. Palatal root is centered between buccal roots. Palatal root is centered between these buccal roots. This is distal aspect, and you can see that distobuccal and distopalatal cusps are seen here. Distobuccal and distopalatal cusps are seen. Then a marginal ridge dips sharply cervically, marginal ridge, marginal ridge. More of occlusal surface and because of distal tilt of crown and cervical line almost right. Then let's see discuss this occlusal. You can see this occlusal aspect of first molar. It is rhomboidal with the mesial and the lingual measurements being greater than distal and the buccal measurements. Here you can see this and they have such four or five cusps. And here you can see they have four fossae. This is central fossae, which is roughly triangular in shape, and it is located mesial to oblique ridge. This is oblique ridge, and you can see the distal fossa, which is linear, which is distally to this oblique ridge. Also, you can see the minor fossa, and you can see the mesial fossa. It is distal to mesial marginal ridge. And You can see the distal fossa. It is mesial to distal marginal ridge. Distal marginal ridge. Then you can see the occlusal aspects. There is six developmental grooves. The first central developmental groove from central pit to mesial fossa. Yes, to central to the mesial fossa. Yes. Then buccal developmental groove from central pit buccally between mesiobuccal and distobuccal cusp. Yes. Then there is distal oblique groove from distal fossa going obliquely. And here you can see these occlusal aspects, and here you can see these all grooves, which are lingual developmental groove joins distal oblique groove, goes between mesiodistal and distolingual cusp and travels cervically. And there is transverse groove. This is transverse groove of the oblique ridge. It crosses the oblique ridge. Oblique ridge. This is oblique ridge. It crosses oblique ridge, and this is fifth cusp groove between the fifth cusp and mesiolingual cusp. And here are these all these grooves and all these cusps diagrammatically, and you can study these grooves and this distribution of cusp. This is maxillary second molar. And what is their principal identifying feature is fifth cusp is less evident. Roots are less divergent and may be joined together. Both distal cusps are less developed, and the crown is smaller in overall dimension than the first incisor. Then, second molar, you can see the crown is shorter and narrower mesiodistally. The distobuccal cusp is smaller, and the roots are closer together, and sometimes they can be fused. Second incisor and mesial. This is divergence of the roots is less than that of the maxillar first molar. Mhm. And this is occlusal aspect, and they are rhomboidal in shape. In occlusal aspect, they are more visible, and the bacolingual diameter is longer than the distal mesial diameter. The distal cusp are smaller and less developed, and there is no fifth cusp here. And there is also maxillary third molar, and its principal identifying features are that it is triangular occlusal outline. Distal lingual cusp is often absent. Roots are shorter, convergent, often fused, and usually are 3 millimeter, 3 in numbers, and smallest maxillary molar, and the mesiolingual cusp is the largest, and it very often erupted, impacted, and this it is so thought that it is vestigial or rudimentary tooth. And you can see the variations, occlusally variations. It may be heart shape, it may be rhomboidal, it may have one cusp type and two cusp when cusps are fused, and very lot of variations of this maxillary third molar. Then let's discuss mandibular first molar. Mandibular first molar resembles the maxillary first molar. And you can see this is buccal side, the lingual side, mesial side, and distal side. And here you can see buccal aspect. You can see mesiobuccal developmental groove, mesiobuccal developmental groove. You can see the mesial root and distal root. You can see the distobuccal developmental groove here, distobuccal developmental groove, distal cusp. You can see also distolingual cusp, distolingual cusp, distolingual cusp, and you can see the mesiolingual cusp and the mesiobuccal cusp. There are four developed and pronounced cusps, and in this occlusal surface is you can see these cusps, distobuccal developmental groove, distobuccal developmental groove, and also you can see the lingual developmental groove, mesiolingual developmental groove, mesiolingual, excuse me, developmental, mesiolingual cusp ridge here, and this is lingual.
Distolingual.
Here, here, are you here?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
Yes, distal cusp
Yeah.
ridge, and I understand that it is sometime boring, but it is special and very
Doctor, we
important
have
for
a
you.
question. Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
always war.
Would you like ask us in the exam, for example, about the the mandibular second premolar, about its shape, lingually, labially? We should know like
uh,
lingually how many
why
cusps.
I made this presentation, because here in the book, in the textbook,
Yeah.
there are 70 pages of this chapter, and
Yes, you
it
know.
is very difficult to study without pictures, without illustrations, without diagrams.
Yes, it's
And I
easier now.
put here this, you must know, you must study this
Yes,
specific
yes, it's
terminology,
easier. We
and
can understand them
some
more, but
questions maybe, yes, some questions maybe from this,
that like the shape of each cusp of lingually, how
yes,
is it shorter or
like the
longer? We should
shape,
know this.
نتوكل عليه.
um,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
for the shape, cusps, how many roots, how many
Longer
cusps,
distally,
how many
shorter
this,
lingually.
this, grooves, developmental grooves, such very important and very crucial and pivotal notions.
ماشي.
Yes.
So
And
can we study instead of book?
Yes, you can.
you must study for this presentation. Salome asked me to send. I send after this lecture. I send this presentation, and you can receive this on Drive. You can find it on Drive and must study. Please study this presentation.
Okay, thank you.
These important questions and important notions.
Thank you.
Yes. And
ضاعت.
راح الصوت ماتت. خلصت أصلا.
كنت 145 سلايد اكتر
خلص.
كمان.
ما هذا عم تقول لك بالكتاب 70 صفحة.
بس ده مش الشابتر كله.
هول 20 صفحة.
هو ده بس 20 صفحة.
هول من page 9 till page 33 برتان.
but after this chapter is continued to the 70 page, 70 or 77 pages. Yes,
Yeah.
and
Yes, of course.
Yeah,
I
can you?
try. I was working all week for you.
Yes, we know,
And
doctor. Thank
yes,
you very much.
you study
يعطيك
سلمت.
ألف عافية.
at home. You can see it, and
Thank
you
you
study
دكتورة.
this
حبيبي thank you.
grooves and cusps and
استشهدت أبو صالح.
Doctor, your
what?
voice isn't clear.
Yes, then mandibular second molar. You can see mandibular second molar and the measurement. We finish soon. Mandibular second molar. This is the measurements average length, crown length, mesiodistal diameter, and molar. There is one developmental groove, then buccal developmental groove between the mesiobuccal and mesiodistal buccal cusp. The roots are inclined distally, and this
دكتور.
أبو صالح رجعت استشهدت.
this
Doctor, your voice isn't
mandibular,
clear.
and I don't describe because there are
والله بتعرف يعني الصبح ما طلع صوت.
ما عم تكمل عادي مثل كأنه ما معش خالص.
بعرف يعني
also,
أنا عارف
and here are all permanent teeth. Description of whole of
Doctor, if you are hearing us, we are not hearing you.
she's not.
راحت الدكتور.
فلت يا
بكا
سلام.
نزلانيا
طب ليش ما عملت ريكورد من اول ما بلش
داف
تخيل؟
ستريتشي براتانا داف ستريتشي بكا
ها
we finished for today. كان معكم الدكتور علي حمدان و thank you for your listening.
لايك ليش ما عملت ريكورد من اول ما بلشت يعني؟ ليش مارلين بدأت عرفت كيف انه ما هي عليها هي لازم
يا ناس
الدكتورة
نايم
هي لازم
براتان
الدكتورة.
يا ناس
كيف
نايم.
كمان؟
تحياتي لمارلين وشكرا جزيلا.
لقيته هاي كيفكن. بس سؤال كيف بدي أعمل له سيف للريكورد هلا بس
انت بس تعملي ستوب يمكن لحاله بينزل على الدرايف.
ينزل عندك على الدرايف تبعتي لنا اياه باي ايميل.
أوكي
خرشو
مو
ميرسي
فكري
كتير
حالك هذا
دكتور.
طبيعي.
ميرسي كتير دكتور مارلين.
ولا أهلا وسهلا.
حبيبة قلبي حبيبتي. كيف لبنان معك ماشي الحال بالكورونا؟
ماشي الحال
ينعاد عليك يا مارلين.
ومزبوط هابي بيرثداي نسينا نقول لك هابي بيرثداي.
انا مش على هابي بيرثدي قصدي يعني قصدي على الايستر.
هابي
انا
إيستر.
انا قصدي هابي بيرثداي. عقبال مين؟
السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام والإكرام ورحمة الله وبركاته. شو أخي أحسن؟ كيفك أبو شاب؟
4-3
شو
لك
3 على أخي
هي
أحسن؟
ابو صالح كم وردة طلع لك 100 وردة او قد ايه؟ هذا الدكتورة. لا مش 3020 وردة.
والله لا 30
Guys
20
open the cameras.
30
عشان في
20
معنا كوكي من
30
كوكي.
20 ما حدا بيفهمها خيي، ما حدا بيفهمها. حل ركز فيها بتعرف شيء 30 20.
ركزت فيه عرفت شوي.
شو؟ عشان أنا بعدني فايق مش عم مركز هلا يعني.
انا ركزت فيه.
طب وين هي يا زلمه؟ ما تكفل بعد في عندنا شي 6 سلايدات يا زلمه.
خلص
ما عم بينزلوا شيء باوربوينتس على الدرايف يا زلمه.
بلا
نازلين بس
بتشي
وحده
لك
بالاخير.
ما أنت بكتب تعمل سيرش على كل مادة بمادتها.
هي قصدي هاودي الجديد ما عم تنزلهم.
ما بعرف ما شفتش الأورا أنا شفت مايكروبيولوجي.
شو منزل 2 مايكروبيولوجي بس الادابتيف والواحد.
لا هني هول 2.
بس قصدي ما عم تنزلهم حقيقي.
شو سارة كيفك؟ هاي سارة فات هلا
هاي.
فات. لا
هلا
كنا بدنا نظلم كنا نعمل فاتحة وتارك التليفون.
هاي سارة. يوم جمعة العظيمة عن سارة.
هاي مارلين كيفك؟
تحية للجمعة العظيمة.
عظيمة طويل عريض.
هلا لحظة مين معيد اليوم الجمعة؟
الجمعة هي جمعة العظيمة عن سارة. بس ما
طيب مش
بنعيد.
مش قصدي انه هيدا الاسبوع مين معيد؟
سارة.
أنا
الله روم سارة.
هلا
الله روم حكيم وبس.
هلا جوي شو
قوات
جوي مرمونة.
جريك.
الله، روم قوات حكيم وبس، والله وبس.
يعني
انا
سارة انت بتتبع التقويم الغربي صح؟
انا
صح.
ارثوذكسي. نحن يا ساره الجمعه الجاي صح؟
لا على فكرة بيقولوا الروم
طيب
مثل
الأرثوذكس
الشيعة تفكيرهم، ما بعرف.
انا ارثوذكس.
نحن الجمعة الجاية رمضان يا زكي.
لا نحن الارثوذكس.
جيك رمضان الجمعة الجاية، جيك السحسوح انت قاعد وجورجي.
ابو صالح يا ابو صالح، شو
هو
بدنا نعمل افطار اول نهار؟
شو بعرفني، ده بدنا نطبخ مع كورونا وده بدنا
خلص
نعمل
يا
شيء.
ماريلين
شاورا
كم
بعد.
إيستر؟
ساره هلا او مارلين هلا مين ارثوذكس ايمتى؟ وشو اسمه
ارثوذكس
كمان؟
ماريلين جمعة الماضية، وهيدي الجمعة هيدا الاسبوع يعني سارة.
شو هيدا مين هن؟ روم؟
سارة الروم. الله روم. الروم هن
نحن
الشيعة بس عند المسيحية.
اه
والله في رفيقتي روم
والله
بلبنان بتقول لي انه الروم مثل الشيعة.
ليه؟
على
ما
حسب.
بل
بيقولوا أشهد أن عيسى ولي الله.
بيقولوا بيقولوا عيسى وعلي نفس الشيء عنده.
آه.
بالتفكير يعني طريقة التفكير، مش بيقولوا علي وعيسى.
عم بتزينخ أنيبا.
شو قلت؟
هلا هيدي شو مش راجعة؟
حاجة
خلص
تتفلسف.
راح. عم معروف
هذا
والله
عم
وانت
تحكي
تتفق.
حالها.
خلص إذا مزعوجة سارة فيك تسكري اتصال عادي.
خلصت هي
هلا بعرف أنا وين
البرزنتيشن.
الكبسة وهيك، بس بدي أعرف إذا بدها تكفي أو لا.
ما بقى حد كافي. خلصت.
ما بعد 10 دقايق أصلا.
لا اصلا خلصت كل الباوربوينت.
الآن هلا
بعد
بس
عندك كان شي 5 صورين.
بعد في كان 5 سلايدز كان. بس خلصت اكيد ما بقى حترجع تفتح كرمال 5 سلايدز.
حرام هلكت على ساعة ونص على فرد نفس.
ساعتين ما سكتت، بس ما عم تسمع ولا عم تقرا، بس عم تحكي.
ماشي إيه نازلة حكي.
وحتى صوتها ما عم نسمع.
صار
هلا
الكورونا
كريم عندها
340
حاطة
370
البيوت ورا.
كيف؟
شو يا يوسف؟
صار الكورونا 370 امبارح 42 واحد زيادة.
بس وين زادوا؟
امبارح 42. اليوم ممنوع السيارات تمشي بجورجيا.
جورجيا كلها مكاورني.
مقدورين.
نيجيريا
مقدورين.
كلها جورجيا كلها. سلومي أول
هي
مرة.
حتى الدكتورة مقدورة كانت اليوم.
شكلها متقلي السهرة امبارح سلومي، أول مرة بتفتش معنا.
شك عندها فالنتاين. عم
لا
فالتني.
امبارح الخميس.
اما مفالتني بتكون الخميس. هو كل سنة الفالنتاين بيجي نهار خميس.
زين امبارح نمت الساعة 12. يعني في طبيعي لازم في بكير. فقت الساعة 9 نمت الساعة 9 ونص. مش عم
انت
تزبط
خرشو
النوم.
ابو جنتي خرشو.
أول امبارح سهرت حضرت المحاضرة. كان على أساس في محاضرة أو شيء، محاضرة هذا الرايتنج.
ده شو بيحضر
ضليتني
يوسف؟
ضليتني سهران من قبل بنهار. قلت
أها.
نحضر ما كان يجيني نوم.
أنا الهيدس اللي بيقولوا له رايتنج وسوشيال مدري شو، هذول ما عم بدرس، مش بدي فيه.
هلا أنا بعد مدرسة الخمس عم بحضرها كرمال تعرف شو الوضع فيها.
المواد المهمة هن ثلاثة بقى.
مايكرو وفارما وأورال.
وأني وديك انسى. إذا نخلص فارما على
الفارما
خير.
دي مش نازلة كتير بسرعة فينا.
أكيد نازلة طيارة فينا.
مين؟
صارت 7 ويك. ما قلنا
أكيد.
جمعتين.
ما بعرف ليش عم تسرع هالقد. قال هي عم تسرع، سألت أني عم تسرع هالقد، قال عاد تعطينا وقت لندرس للامتحانات، بس إنه شو خاص يعني.
الفارماكولوجيا.
آه.
آخر لكتشر امبارح نزلتها كنت عم بفتح البورتال لقيتها عم تعيد الشابتر 1 و 2.
عم تعمل بعرف إيه،
مثل
شفت ريفيو، ما بعرف مدري لمين في حدا عم يحضر معه.
دخلكن هادي ما عم يحضر ولا صاف ولا فاطمة صباط ولا ريم ولا ريم.
أنت
معقولي تركوا؟
ما بعتقد خي، بكي هذه ترك ليقدم يرجع كونكور.
هو إذا صار في كونكور
ايه
بلبنان
يمكن.
بس ما بعتقد كنت ترى في عم يدرس دوري اونلاين. انا بس خلصوا لكتشرز وكذا.
أنا كنت بحطها ببالي أرجع أقدم كونكور، بس خي ما بتأخر كل شي في سنين. شو برجع عيد سنة تانية وأنا عيد سنة أولى، يعني سنة أولى
خالص
عدتها وسنة تانية عدتها، يعني شو 3 مرات بقى من محلي 3 سنين.
خالص بلشت هون اتكل على الله يا أخي.
والله أنا ماشي حالي بالجامعة، حاببها للجامعة أكثر شيء سلومي حاببها.
ايه هي سلومي بتنحاب خي.
تخلص الكورونا بقى يا زلمة، عرفنا حياتنا.
بعيدة بعيدة.
بعيدة لا تخلص.
الكورونا ما بتخلص لشهر السنة الجاي، لشهر 9
طب
لتخلص.
مع أساس روسيا عملت دواء
مين
خلال
و
جمعة بينزل.
4000 حوالي اليوم بروسية طلع عندنا الدواء.
هيك كانوا عم بيقول.
لا تروح على شهر 9
يلا
لتخلص.
بدكم شي؟
سلامتك.
باي.
ينعاد
باي.
عليكي سارة، باي.
يلا بدك شيء يا شيخ يوسف؟
ما ينبعث حدا بالكول.
مارلين هلا هي بدها تسكر ريكورد.
يلا خليكي ناطرة يا مارلين.
يلا
باي باي.
باي باي.